Hello and welcome to the Visual Artist Spotlight for the month of March. March is special because it's Arts Education Month here in California and in Redding, California. And so for Arts Education Month, for our Visual Artist Spotlight, we are sitting down with Tami Watson from Enterprise High School. She is one of the art teachers over at Enterprise and is coming in on this beautiful Saturday morning to chat with us here. Hello, Tami.
Good morning.
Could you briefly introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me and for Michaela recommending me. She's awesome. I have been teaching art in Redding for a really long time.
How long?
I had to calculate this morning, and I am finishing up my 30th year in Redding at Enterprise High School.
Where did you grow up?
Well, my early childhood was in Iowa, so Sioux City, Iowa. I'm a Midwesterner. And then my teen years were in Idaho, Nampa, Idaho. And then I went directly to school down in Los Angeles, UCLA. So the campus was bigger than my hometown. Yeah, so that was a shock to my system, but one that I welcomed. I was really enjoying that exposure to the world. Mm-hmm.
I'm a UC Berkeley guy myself.
I almost went to UC Berkeley for grad school.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, but I was pretty settled in Los Angeles, and I thought, oh, my life would have been a lot different, but I think it was the right move.
So I think the next question is, what brought you to Redding, California from LA and Iowa and Idaho?
Yeah. After I got my bachelor's, I kind of saw this program for arts education in the museum setting offered by Northridge. Huh. And so part of the requirement to get into there was to spend some time in classrooms. So I volunteered, did some after-school programs, did some observations in schools, and kind of loved that, surprisingly, because I am not a on-stage, up-front kind of person. I always thought the museum would be great because it was behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I had done internships in museums. I really loved that too. But then working with kids, it was just like a light went on, and it was fun, and they were funny. And I thought that I might be able to bring a lot to the table. So I applied for the credentialing program and art education program at Cal State Northridge, and that's where I got my teaching credential.
Straight to Enterprise after that?
No, I taught 3 years there in Van Nuys, Grant High School in Van Nuys, which was a huge school, like 4,000 kids on campus.
Yeah.
Like 50 languages spoken. It was all such a huge learning experience. It was a great way to start learning. Yeah. I had a lot of great support at that big school. I made some lifetime friends, some mentors that I still look up to. I taught there for about 3 years, but the LA riots were happening. This is early 90s.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was heavy, and like our kids were all bussed in from the inner city. A lot of them were, and just saw how that impacted them, and just acts of random violence, and I was like, oh, this is a lot.
This is a lot.
Yeah.
And so at a certain point, after 3 years, then you came here to Shasta County?
Yeah, exactly. I started looking around for something that was in between Idaho and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And we really are in Redding, almost like that. I applied to a few other places, but I couldn't believe there are not very many full-time art positions that come open regularly.
Yeah. And
one came up in Redding, California. And here's a weird coincidence. My mom's neighbor in Idaho knew people who were teachers in Redding. So when I mentioned to her, there's this job in Redding, he's like, oh, ask about Ed so-and-so. And so I did. And so like that was the only connection I had to Redding, California. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I met Mike Stewart, and he interviewed me, and he was amazing. And I said, I don't know if I'm going to get my husband to move up here, because he had just gotten his first teaching position. He was a little bit behind me in the whole process, and he'd gotten his first coaching position, which is what he loved.
Yeah.
And Mike Stewart said, if you move up here and he coaches and he teaches like you do, I will find a place for him. And I'll tell you, shout out to Mike Stewart, because he is a man of his word, and he's the reason we're all here. He's the reason my kids are here, everything.
How cool. Go Mike Stewart. What does being an art teacher at Enterprise High School entail? Do you teach an array of classes? What does like a day look like for your students?
I teach the range of classes. Currently, I teach Art 1, 3 sections, so that's my morning.
Uh-huh.
And then I have my prep, and then in the afternoon, I have Art 2, and then in my 6th period, I get it to end up the day with my advanced students, and most of them are AP students. It's a small class, and they are just top-notch kids.
So Art 1, introduction.
Yes, that's the whole catch-all way to meet one of their high school graduation requirements is a visual or performing art. Yeah. So I don't get to meet many of the music kids. And then honestly, a lot of the visual art kids are kids who are like, don't put me on a stage.
Yeah.
And so this is one alternative, and my job, I feel like, is to help them maybe discover some hidden interest, skill, and then build their skills.
So, Tami, do you have an example of life after high school for students? I mean, having worked for 30 years, I'm sure you've seen them come, you've seen them go. What have some of your students gotten up to after high school? Have any of them gone on to pursue artistry or anything like that?
You're right. I mean, I had 3 years down in LA before moving up here. Mm-hmm. So, you were talking about formative years. There are still some of those early students I'm still in touch with. So that's kind of cool through social networking. But 30 years here, I do run across them once in a while, and I am in touch with them on Facebook and Instagram. And I have one who is actually an art teacher here in Redding, which that's always kind of cool. I was hoping to run across more. Maybe they're out there. I'm just not aware of them. But I have someone who makes jewelry in New Mexico. I have graphic designers in Texas and Southern California. Some who are they're creatives, not necessarily, your kind of conventional artist. Mm-hmm. One in particular who was amazing. She started a company down in Southern California who supported creatives in launching their careers. And I thought that was really great because she was an amazing artist herself, but kind of taking people to the next level. Like what I try to put out in the world is like, yes, you can do this, and then she's taken it from the adult standpoint and provided ways for those creatives to launch their career. So she's taken on the business aspect, which I struggle with. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So I have sculptors and art professors in Santa Cruz and Oregon. And so they're kind of scattered throughout and being creative in a lot of different ways from beyond just like painting and drawing. But
I think that's a perfect segue into Arts Education Month. Why are the arts important in education, in your opinion, right? You have some kids who are taking it for their requirement. They don't want to be on stage, so they're in Art 1. What sort of things do you see them discovering? Do you see people that maybe start off a little reticent and then, they actually really enjoy going to art class,
All of what you just said, and I could probably speak for hours on it, but one of the main things is it's exercising the other side of their brain, the right side of their brain, which the majority of their school day is on the left side, math and logic and sequencing and that kind of thing. And the right side of the brain just works totally differently. So it is a brain break, but also it balances out and develops other parts of their brain, allows them to be creative, has open-ended problems. That's why I was always think of it as like, I'm not really trying to teach you to be an artist, but maybe to exercise another side of your brain and tap into other ways of expressing and communicating.
I think that hits the nail on the head. Let's get a little bit of a personal touch in here. Before I even met you as the art teacher, I heard about you as the artist who was showcasing artwork in one of our exhibits at Old City Hall here. We had a birds, bugs, and blooms exhibit, and you had some really cool pieces up for display. So it seems like your art extends beyond the classroom environment.
Honestly, I wanted to always be a teacher who practices what they teach. So I think that's really important. I think high schoolers they want to know that you know what you're talking about. Yeah. And so, it's important to practice what I teach. But honestly, for a long time, raising 3 kids who were super academic and athletic and involved, just like we wanted them to be, my art making was a lot on the side. But now they're all out, being successful, productive adults in the world. So now I have more time for my art. And just in the last couple of years, gotten together with some other art teachers, current and former art teachers, and we have a little art club of our own. We meet once a week at different people's houses, and we just kind of putter, and then sometimes we find a focus. And about a year or so ago, it was right in the depths of COVID that we was like, we should put on a show. And so that was a real driving force to actually produce a lot of work. And COVID helped, honestly, in that I had some time to really push myself, and then had the support of my art friends. And I'm primarily a painter, but I like to build things out of clay and 3-dimensional stuff. And I did a lot of sewing during COVID. So those are some of the things that I do.
Do you have any events coming up, either for yourself or your students? I know we're actually kind of wrapping up the gallery for your students, but and anything coming up that folks can check out?
Okay, well, there was a flurry of exhibitions, in the early spring. We participate in the Cultural Cruise. We have our own gallery on campus, which is one of the, I have to say this, it's one of the few in the North State where the campus has their own separate gallery, and it's pretty cool. Actually, I'd love to send you some pictures or have you come. We just had an opening this last Thursday. And it is open to the public, but during school hours, so you kind of have to make arrangements with the main office.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But what we did with this is that my Art 2 students were tasked with putting on the whole show. So they curated the show. They chose the artwork. They had the theme. They had to prepare the artwork, mat it, frame it, install it in the gallery in a way that makes sense. They had to do the documentation for it. They had to do the promotions for it. Some of them hosted the reception. So we're kind of giving them all aspects of that. And then just yesterday we did a little debrief. So I haven't read those yet, but like what they learned from it. And I think a lot of them, it was an eye opener. It's like, there's a lot of work that goes into exhibiting artwork. So that was cool. And some of them are like, I really like doing that.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the most current thing. And we'll have one more show at the end of the year. Me personally, the siren's going by. We don't have any big shows planned. We just finished something at the Sweet Spot with my Artrageous ladies who were awesome. It was a heart show. I'm sure that we'll get restless and come up with something else. We've all been involved in mural projects, and I think that's kind of maybe something that we'll be looking at here for the summer.
I know our friends at Visit Reading are sort of
Art Hunger.
And Art Hunger,
Yes.
they're sort of planning. They have their eye on that too, so we gotta link in with those folks.
Whenever possible, I try to connect with Carlo and Blake, EHS alum.
Yeah. Right on. Well, hey, I think this has been a great chat. Anything else you want to mention before we bring things to a close?
I was thinking about that this morning, actually, that for those of you who are maybe feeling on the outside of the art world, sometimes it can be kind of intimidating, like walking into a gallery can be intimidating, to just see, not just look, but see, think about what it is that the artist is trying to say. And for my art students, what are you trying to say? Beyond your surface, who's inside, what are you thinking about, what are you feeling, what are you trying to communicate? And that's what I'm trying to tap into with them. I think that's that's what being an artist is. It's a way of being and a way of seeing.
There we go. You heard it here. Tami Watson from Enterprise High School for our Visual Artist Spotlight for the month of March. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Shasta County Arts Council.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.